So as we enter the 2020 Super Bowl weekend between the Chiefs and the 49ers, for the uninitiated, we have to really break it down to you, especially 49er fans. I don't think your franchise could still exist or be as successful were it not by the complete and utter failure by my Dallas Cowboys in a 1982 NFC Championship game to stymie what was then the start of the 49ers dynasty under Bill Walsh and Joe Montana. No disrespect to the current group of 49er players and coaches, but they're not like the Joe Montana years. They're workmanlike. They're not going to be a dynasty. If anything, they're probably a 1 or 2 year wonder. But we were getting rumblings that the 49ers were going to make big inroads against Dallas and the other NFC teams in the early 1980s after the 49ers decided to go for the legend of Notre Dame, Joe Montana, who won a very famous Cotton Bowl with a last minute drive to put himself and his team back on the map. Now, the NFC title game was a lead in to a very successful playoff year, 81-82 for Dallas and the 49ers. Dallas had great success against their NFC opponents that year, and we weren't really thinking the 49ers could beat Dallas, but because the 49ers had a better record, and Dallas was, even though we lost to Philadelphia in the NFC title game the year before, they were still the Dallas Cowboy or most of the roster that got them great success in the 1970s and made them a dynasty of that era with the Steelers and the Raiders. Now, this contest was kind of interesting because it was probably one of the most highly rated NFC title games of all time, and probably one of the most exciting. More than a half dozen lead changes, extremely, mediocre play on both sides that led to great play. But what it's known for, it's the game-winning touchdown in the last minute, 51 seconds ago, from Joe Montana to Dwight Clark, which again was considered the greatest play of all time, or one of the greatest plays of all time, in the NFL 100 list. And for me, it was one of the worst plays in Dallas history, because Dallas could have easily won that game. 49ers had made 6 turnovers. We had Danny White, who replaced Roger Staubach, and Danny was known for not capitalizing on turnovers or winning drives, and this really played out. So I'm going to give a quick recap of the game, and I just want there's a YouTube version of the full game that people can watch, and you'll see what I mean. If you're a Dallas Cowboy fan in the 1970s and early 80s, we had very little faith that Danny White would be the next Roger Staubach. Roger the Dodger had overachieved coming out of college as a Heisman winner, and he basically took over from the mediocre Craig Morton, led us to two Super Bowl victories, helped us get there several times. Besides, and losing ever to the Steelers, no problem losing the Steelers. They were the better overall team at the time, but Roger would take defeat and turn it into the victory. But this game, Danny White took victory and turned it into defeat, and eventually it took 17 or 18 years for the franchise to come back, because they did make the Washington NFC title game the next year, but Washington, of course, was in that 80s dynasty era with Theismann and everybody else. Now, when in the game, San Francisco took an early lead when Joe Montana threw a 17-yard pass to Charlie Young and a 24-yarder to Lenville Elliott, and he connected with Eddie Solomon for the first touchdown. Now, Dallas responded with a field goal and then a pass by White to Tony Hill that put Dallas up 10-7. Now, in the second quarter, the 49ers had ample opportunity to score, and it did that. Clark scored his first touchdown on a game, a 20-yarder to put the 49ers up 14-10. Now, Dallas responded again with their own drive, and with Dorsett scoring on a five-yard rush on an 80-yard drive to make it 17-14 Dallas. Now, the Dallas led by 17-14 and a half, and a lot of people were confident that Dallas could kind of expand on the lead because most Dallas offenses of the time would score more points in the second half to secure a victory, like 2 or 3 touchdowns. But in the third quarter, San Francisco got another scoring opportunity, and eventually they went ahead on a 2 yard touchdown run by running back Johnny Davis. Now, into the fourth quarter, Raphael Septien hit a field goal to make it 21-20, and then one of our underrated Dallas players at the time, tight end Cosby, caught a touchdown pass to give Dallas a 27-21 lead with actually minutes to go. Now, Everson Walls, who played a factor in the Dwight Clark touchdown pass, which we'll get into in a few seconds, he recovered a fumble from running back Walt Easley at midfield, and at first, and he took his second interception of the game against Montana on the next drive at the Cowboys 27. Now, Dallas had an opportunity to run out the clock here. They hit a few first downs, but they eventually had to kick the ball away, giving San Francisco the ball at their own 11 with 4:54. Now, if anybody saw that winning, what turned out to be a winning drive, it was the first of the NFL big-scale Montana comebacks, which was very frequent later on against the Bengals, different teams. For some reason, Dallas couldn't stop Elliott, which was just a marginal running back before he got Roger Craig. He rushed 4 times for 30 yards in a drive. Solomon made a lot of catches. And you got to understand, there was no Jerry Rice in the 49er lineup at the time. This was, kind of a Bill Walsh makeshift team. But the problem is, I think Dallas, with the 6 turnovers, not putting the 49ers away, didn't have an opportunity to put them off. Now, with about 58 seconds left, they got all the way down to the 6-yard line, and Montana decided to do a fade pass, and he was chased by Tootal Jones and a few other great Dallas players, but they couldn't deflect the ball, and Clark made one of the greatest catches in NFL history, high against Everson Walls, and gave San Francisco a 28-27 lead. Now, history's been rewritten about this game. A lot of people just remember the catch, but I remember something much more important. Danny White and Drew Pearson, like Roger Staubach and Drew Pearson, would always hit the big play after a scoring drive by the other team. And this would happen. He threw a completion to Pearson that should have went for a touchdown. He was horse tackled past the 50-yard line into San Francisco territory. And all Whitewood had to do was run the ball a few occasions, get in the field goal range, and Dallas would win. But for some reason, Tom Landry and he decided to try for a pass. He was hit by Stuckey, which was a top player for 49ers, and he fumbled. Now, I think it goes down in history as one of the first playoff games ever, or the only ever, where the winning team gave up 6 turnovers, and turnovers that led to a lot of points and won the game. But the thing is, when you're watching something and you're saying this is a destiny game, it was destined for the 49ers in front of their very, very supportive fans to beat Dallas, and that gave them momentum to win the Super Bowl against the Bengals. There was no way the Bengals were going to win the Super Bowl that year. That year, Ken Anderson was never the type of player that, let's say, a Dan Fouts or an AFC style quarterback like Jim Kelly was. Good workman like quarterback. So that would have been another Super Bowl for Dallas. And it may have stopped the San Francisco dynasty for a while, but San Francisco with Roger Craig coming up and Jerry Rice and all the great defensive players, Romanowski and all that, they eventually won several Super Bowls afterwards. Now, for a Dallas fan of 2020 that's under the age of 35, you will never not seen this game. I watched this game live with my father, and I was still shocked how we lost. But like I said, it was a destiny game. The football gods, wanted Joe Montana to be the next Joe Namath. And no matter what Tom Brady does, you got to understand, when Tom Brady was beating these teams in the Super Bowl, he never had to face a marquee team like the Cowboys, like the Steelers, like the Giants. The Patriots have had weak opposition through the years, but it doesn't discount all their Super Bowls. But there will be a second-tier dynasty in my mind because everything seems kind of corporate. This was real football back then. This was grinding football, no replays. What you saw is what you got. And Dallas was the last 1917 dynasty that could continue in the 80s, but due to bad luck. And they had great success. The two big victories over Atlanta, the big playoff victory against Green Bay. There was a couple of playoff victories against Tampa Bay, which had a good team at a time with Doug Williams. But we have to put things in perspective. In 2020, no one lives or dies with football. Back then, the ramifications and the residual effect of Dallas losing in San Francisco after beating them twice previously with Staubach in playoff games and losing the way they did. This is akin to them losing to the Cleveland Browns in the 1960s when they were, what they call next year's winners. So please give a comment or a share or like on this podcast. We have to understand that Dallas of 1982 should have won the Super Bowl, but they didn't have Roger Staubach. Dallas should have been at least another 3 Super Bowls in the early 80s, but without Roger Staubach, who was retirement, giving Danny White the chance. They should have. Roger didn't want to stay because he was forced out, and that cost us at least 3 Super Bowls. And it's a what if all the time. Now, for the 49ers fans out there who disagree with me, too bad for you because you guys didn't count until you defeated us, did you? We made you. You didn't make us. To beat a man, you got to beat the man. And like I said, 49er fans love you to death, but this was not really a Jerry Rice, Roger Craig year. This was a miracle that Montana did from his from his almost cold dead hands. You don't have 6 turnovers in a game and win. Only one person could have done that is Joe Montana, and he's been a ghost that's been haunting Tom Brady and the Dallas Cowboys for years. There's no Dallas fans going to brag up the 49ers in any shape or form. I hope Kansas City wins by 87 points is what I'm saying. But why would you love your enemies? This is football. This is not the Bible. This is football. America's game. Anyway, have a great day. Keep your stick in the ice, and as we like to say in Dallas country, Hail Mary. Have a good one. Bye.